Welcome back. I'm Austin Westfall. Day 2 of the DNC coming to a close in Chicago. We got you covered tomorrow for day 3. And of course, on day 4, we're going to be showing you all of the speeches uninterrupted, no commercial breaks, unfiltered. That's how we're going to be covering this thing as the DNC progresses. A live look inside the United Center where the crowd is filing out. We will begin our coverage tomorrow afternoon as we see a litany of other speakers take to the stage. We just heard from Connor Hansen that Bill Clinton will be among those speaking tomorrow, as well as Kamala Harris's running mate, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Let's break down a lot of what we've been covering all day today. We have been showing every single speech. We've been watching every single moment, and I know another person who's been doing the exact same thing. That's political analyst Rich Rubino, one of my favorite people to talk politics with. Rich, as always, good to see you, sir. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were not at the convention tonight. They were holding a rally about an hour-and-a-half drive up I-94. They were in Milwaukee. How common is it for candidates to not be there during the DNC, Rich?
It's very common. Actually, conventions, it used to be standard operating procedure that the candidate would actually not even attend not even attend the event convention. It's actually the first time a presidential candidate actually attended their own convention was James Garfield in 1880, and he was only there to nominate John Sherman of Ohio for president. It then turned out that 36 ballots, someone nominated him for president. It nominated him for president. That wasn't his ultimate aim. It actually began this process of presidents actually attending was in 1932 when Franklin D. Roosevelt, at the time the governor of New York, accepted the nomination at the convention. And since then, it's been basically protocol. I think what we saw with Donald Trump was almost unprecedented in that he was there for every day of the convention listening. And he was actually in the box listening. Generally speaking, the candidates are out campaigning during the convention, and then usually they come back and they're there on the day of the convention, or perhaps maybe they'll do a video or something to that effect. I remember, for example, Bill Clinton in 1996, when the last time the convention was in Chicago, he was out in Ohio, and they brought a video out to him, and he said, "I just want to say that I'm here with Congresswoman Marcy Cantor, and we're just wanted to say hi to all the conventioners." And then he kind of eventually landed up at the convention, but it's very rare for candidates to be at the convention for certainly for the first couple of days.
There are some Republicans speaking at the convention this week. On our screen right now is Mesa, Arizona Mayor John Giles. Why is it that Republicans are speaking at the DNC?
Well, he's the exception, and exception to the rule. And I think the reason they're having him there is his basic point is he says, I'm somebody that's from the middle. He said it was a John McCain Republican. He actually gave a speech in Arizona about a week ago for Vice President Harris and Tim Walz. He's there to show the contrast. In order for the Democrats to win, part of it is animating the base. That's what a lot of this convention was about. But they also need to give something to kind of centrist, persuadable voters, or perhaps even disaffected Republicans, urban Republicans, perhaps people in Arizona who normally would vote for Republican, maybe business-oriented Republicans, but have really been kind of alienated, if you will, from the Republican Party of Donald Trump. I think that's why he was there. You see this, and that's why they gave him such an important slot, even though he did not speak for more than a couple of minutes. You see this sometimes at conventions. For example, Joe Lieberman, who was the Democratic nominee for vice president 2000, came 2008. He was still a Democrat, but you know what? He was giving the keynote address at the Republican National Convention because he supported John McCain. Concomitantly, you also saw, or in another circumstance, you saw, you've seen this in a couple of different circumstances. You also saw Zell Miller. Zell Miller in 1992 gave the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention in New York. In 2004, he was still a Democrat, and he gave the keynote address for the Republican convention, which nominated the person who became his ally, George W. Bush, for re-election. So I think that if you can get anybody who's disaffected from the other party, it's always good. It's always very positive for that candidate to be speaking at the convention.
Barack and Michelle Obama closed out the night. Nowadays, it's not every day that we see Barack and Michelle giving a speech in front of a crowd. Are there any parallels to draw between Obama, the candidate in 2008, and Harris, the candidate in 2024?
Yes, absolutely. In the respect that they both have been able to galvanize crowds. You have candidates, sometimes you have candidates like John Kerry in 2004, Michael Dukakis in 1988, Joe Biden in 2020, that had problems trying to galvanize their bases. They had problems trying to bring their bases out. They were seen, if you will, as part of the establishment. It was very hard for them sometimes to be seen as relating to their constituents. In the case of Barack Obama, he was somebody who, beginning in 2004, when he ran for United States Senate, he was a lowly member of the state Senate. John Kerry gave him the gift of being able to speak at the convention in Boston. He delivered that address, and he talked, which was actually very similar to this address, because he talked about being the skinny kid with a funny looking name. But in 2008, he really galvanized that crowd at the convention. And I think you're seeing the same situation with Vice President Harris. Although a lot of that is the idea right now of Vice President Harris, because I think a lot of people don't really know that much about her. They either have a positive or negative feeling based on Joe Biden or based on what they think she is. We're really going to see when she gets out on the campaign trail, and when she gets more on the campaign trail, certainly when she gets into debates, whether she can continue to sustain that galvanization. But right now, she's really kind of at the high water mark, and Barack Obama was able to sustain that during the campaign. But the other advantage that she has, and this is one of the things that's advantage that she got the nomination after Joe Biden dropped out, is that she did not have a bitter primary. Barack Obama did have a bitter primary in 2008. His main rival was John Edwards and Hillary Clinton, and it got to the point they actually landed up having to go to Unity, New Hampshire, where it was tied 211 votes to apiece between Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton, and they tried to kind of they tried to essentially come together. They had to reproach Ma, and I think most Hillary supporters landed up supporting Barack Obama at the end. Vice President Harris, there was no primary challenge against her. What does that mean? That means that she has consolidated the Democratic base, in that there is nobody who says, we really wanted this governor, we wanted this senator, we wanted this general, we wanted this member of the United States House of Representatives.
Obama mentioned President Biden toward the beginning of his speech. There, of course, has been murmurs about friction between the two in recent months. What do you make about Obama's remarks about the president?
I don't know how much friction there actually is. That's certainly one of the rumors, that it was Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer that really tried to persuade Joe Biden to stand down. I think this time around, you did see that Barack Obama was very much laudatory, if you will, toward the president, saying that he had done it that he will be remembered historically as a very effective president. He went through the accomplishments of Joe Biden. In terms of what the actual personal relationship is, I'll just say that they ran against each other in 2008. They had a very good relationship when Barack Obama was president. Joe Biden was vice president. In 2016, though, Joe Biden was considering running for president, as was Hillary Clinton, and Barack Obama said that he would not make an endorsement if it was one of the two running against each other. But my guess is that any friction is probably very ephemeral, and they probably have a relatively cordial relationship with each other.
Why are the Obamas still such an important tool for the Democrats?
They're very important, just like Bill Clinton was very important for the Democrats, in that they both were very popular. They both are very popular with the American people. Now, during Barack Obama's presidency, he wasn't always that popular. In 2010, for example, the Democrats lost seats in the House of Representatives, which was the biggest loss of the Democratic Party since Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1938 in a midterm election. So he was not necessarily popular when he was president. The Affordable Care Act, many Democrats like Chet Edwards from Texas ended up losing Chet Edwards from Texas, Gene Taylor, Mississippi, Steve Lynch from Massachusetts voted against the Affordable Care Act. He had to do a lot to try to get it through the United States Senate. Finally, he got Ben Nelson in Nebraska to vote for it, but it was very hard for him. But since he's left office, the Affordable Care Act has become popular. He's become popular, and consequently, I think that he's more of somebody who's kind of verifies that if Vice President Harris is okay with Barack Obama, who's now very popular, then for some voters were maybe a little bit incredulous or skeptical, if you will, they would say, well, I'm going to support Vice President Harris as well. But very similar tool to Bill Clinton around 2010, 2012. When the Barack Obama wasn't that popular, they had Bill Clinton going out, as Barack Obama said, as the secretary of explaining things.
You know, we also saw second gentleman Doug Emhoff. He gave a primetime speech tonight. This might be one of the biggest appearances that Harris's husband has had as of yet. I'm curious, What do Democrats think he offers to the campaign, Emhoff?
I think he offers the personal side of Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris is very much a tabula rasa, or really a blank slate with the American people right now. I think, a personal side of how they met. Very interesting about that phone call where he was where the second gentleman was trying to call her and was very kind of trepidatious or afraid, if you will. I think it's just a personal relationship in general, and I think that he also offers a constituency that really is that's really quite huge. And that's blended families. The fact that it's not that people do get divorced, their stepchildren, that type of thing. I think he kind of is a tribune of the blended family movement, if you will.
Today's theme was a bold vision for America's future. Did they lay out a vision today?
I think they laid out a vision. A lot of it was it's not actually, you know what? I think it's more that they laid out a vision in terms of continuing along the same path that they have gone through with Joe Biden. Joe Biden is not a particularly popular president, but if you look at in terms of what is his platform, in terms of what he has accomplished, Democrats, rightly or wrongly, will take credit for the recovery, for the fact that there have been 16 million new jobs. Now, how many of those are because of Joe Biden? How many of those are simply because the pandemic is over? That's for people to debate, but it's something that they would say that Vice President Harris will continue that. She'll continue to try to get prescription drug prices down. That's really the vision. It's an economic vision. And the other vision is that she'll protect reproductive rights, that she'll try to get it encoded in federal law, support for reproductive rights. I would suppose that would mean that if the Supreme Court justice were to become vacant, or for that matter, a lower inferior court, they would also try to put somebody up there who has a history of supporting reproductive rights.
The RNC in Milwaukee got a lot of praise for being basically a well-run program, for being a focused program. Do you get that same feeling from what we've seen out of Chicago so far?
Yes, absolutely. At least today. Yeah, I mean, yesterday I think there were probably too many speakers, and they probably had too many speakers toward in the evening. Some of them could have probably been closer to 5 o'clock and landed up going well past midnight. Today, I think was very more controlled environment. It was very much a unified, consolidated, and galvanized environment. I mean, really, there were some people I think were afraid that there was going to be some sort of a movement with some of the delegates who were uncommitted. And what does it mean to be uncommitted? Well, in some states, they were the ones who voted president were there to vote for. There were uncommitted delegates, meaning that in states like Wisconsin, for example, there were a lot of Democrats who were angry at the current administration for the handling of the war in Gaza. You really didn't see that. You really saw a very unified base of the Democratic Party. And this is what happens when somebody wins a nomination without having a primary challenge, which splits the party asunder.
The theme for tomorrow, day 3, is a fight for our freedoms. Why is freedom a cornerstone of the DNC's messaging this cycle?
I think part of it is freedom, and you hear the word democracy a lot. They're trying to say that if Donald Trump is elected, he would take away democracy, that he is more of an autocrat, that he is somebody who idolizes idolizes other despotic leaders, whether it's North Korea, for example. That's the message they're trying to. That's the message I think that they were trying to send, that the Democratic Party will restore democracy, the Republican Party will not.
And finally, Rich, what are we looking ahead to tomorrow?
It's going to be they call him the big dog, and that's Bill Clinton. You haven't heard much from Bill Clinton recently, but certainly that Arkansas charm that he possesses. Usually when he gives a speech, people generally are kind of almost entranced by it. Now, we haven't heard him give many speeches. He's given a couple speeches lately. He spoke at Arkansas Senator David Pryor's funeral, for example, but he hasn't been giving a lot of speeches lately. So I think a lot of Democrats, particularly younger Democrats, by the way, probably don't remember the 90s. And also, while he may have suffered under the Me Too movement in terms of his personal popularity, most Americans that were alive during the time remember the 90s as an era of good feelings, if you will. And Bill Clinton was very popular when he was president. He left office with a 66% job approval rating, the most popular president in the history of polling. So I think he'll try to remind the Democrats of the 90s. And he will try to say that Vice President Harris also will continue the work of Joe Biden in terms of restoring the economy. That's probably what Bill Clinton will say, but I think you'll see a very rapturous applause and really kind of an entranced convention toward the former president.
Thanks for staying up late with us tonight, Rich. We appreciate
got it.
you. All right.
You got it, Austin.